Ghost ships come in many forms, from the empty, derelict vessels found drifting at sea, to paranormal apparitions taunting sailors from another realm. But without doubt, the eeriest are those discovered to have nothing wrong with them. No signs of violence or struggle whatsoever. The ones where the crew just up and vanished in the middle of the ocean without a single clue left behind. And the quintessential story of that kind is the one and only Mary Celeste. The American merchant brigantine was found adrift and deserted with a lifeboat gone. Yet, strangely, all provisions and personal belongings were left preserved and untouched. The last log was from 10 days earlier, but without any mention of unease. Today, we're going to investigate the mystery. We're going to review the initial hearings and work through the modern-day theories to see if we can put this ghost story to bed. Make sure your doors and windows are locked and get under the covers, because this is the story of the ghost ship Mary Celeste. December 4th, 1872. The Canadian brigantine de Gratia finds a disheveled but seaworthy vessel floating under partial sail just 400 miles east of the Azores. Understandably, the crew was startled to discover this sight, but the fact this was the Mary Celeste, the same vessel which had left New York 8 days before them, was even more chilling. On board should have been 7 crewmen and Captain Benjamin Spoon Briggs, along with his wife and their 2-year-old daughter. Yet, when the boarding party climbed onto the ship, they instead discovered no trace whatsoever of the 10 people. The only signs of life were the creaking wood of the hull and the salty waves crashing against them. There was a good chance they had crossed paths with these missing people back in America during the month of November. There was even a chance that they were the last to ever see them alive. Upon investigating the ghost ship, they discovered 6 months of food supply intact, including the vast barrels of alcohol, and personal possessions left untouched in pristine condition. Yet, there were some oddities. Of all the lifeboats, only one had gone. The maps in the chart room had been thrown about, and one of the pumps had been disassembled, leaving 3.5 feet of sloshing water in the ship's bottom. The lifeboat suggests an emergency evacuation, yet nothing else was disturbed that would suggest a hasty exit. It was as if everyone on board had simply vanished into thin air. Or maybe that's what the Canadians wanted people to believe. When the crew of De Gratia reported their findings to the Vice Admiralty in Gibraltar, some 800 miles away, there was suspicion that perhaps this crew was simply attempting to salvage insurance from Mary Celeste's company. Could it be that these men had in fact done something to the crew of the Celeste? This was the firm belief of Frederick Solly Flood, the Attorney General conducting the hearing. But according to historians, quote, his arrogance and pomposity were inversely proportional to his IQ, and it was his belief, his certainty, that a crime had been committed which led to a full examination. Now, the men who had discovered the ghost ship and crept through its eerily silent corridors were being accused of something sinister. Blood was discovered on the captain's sword, it was said, and man-made marks on the bow must have been made from ramming, they said. There was an axe cut and a mark on a banister, which they said must surely have been the blood of the young mother and child as they begged for their lives. Eyes fell on the Canadian soldiers, but Flood had bolder ideas. He envisioned the sailors of the Celeste themselves as the one who dragged the axes through the hull in search of their captain and his family. Flood imagined them drunk from the vast alcohol cargo and acting in a fit of rage. Perhaps some minor argument of pay got out of hand, and before they knew what had happened, the sailors were standing amongst dismembered corpses. The murderers must have fled, Flood reasoned, into the wide open sea rather than face justice. It's quite the theory, but one without evidence. As the investigation went on, the blood on the sword turned out to not be blood after all, and the man-made cuts to the bow were not so man-made. Documents from the captain's own logs, and even his wife's own letters to her family, revealed a shared confidence and fondness for this new crew, although Flood, of course, doubted their authenticity. But if insane, mutinous bloodlust was not the cause, well, then it must have been something far stranger. Several times throughout the ship's log, there is mention of ominous rumbling coming from deep within the ships. Perhaps somewhere in the wealth of cargo was a stowaway, or worse, they were being followed. Not by pirates, but something below the surface that was tapping away at the bow, leaving large cuts along the length of the ship. From sirens to mermaids, sailors have regaled stories of encounters with terrifying creatures upon their return to safe shores. Yet, the giant squid, the basis for the possibly mythical kraken, was only captured in 2004. Could it have been that the crew of the Mary Celeste was attacked by a creature from the deep? Perhaps they saw a tentacle reach out from the ocean and search for something alive on board. Perhaps they took the lifeboat desperately. Investigators noted that the rope was cut, not lowered, before being chased by a creature and dragged down to the murky depths. Then again, the cargo of alcohol is known to give off explosive cases. Suppose a louder than usual explosion caused a panic, and that's why everyone piled into just one of the lifeboats before cutting themselves free. It's possible, but abandoning a ship is the last thing a captain would order and the last thing a sailor would do, especially one as experienced as any of the men on board. It would require something truly extraordinary and alarming to cause that to happen. Let's examine the water on the ship. Believing their boat was flooding would be a reason to try your luck on the open sea, but with a disassembled pump and only a small amount of seawater poses the question of whether this was foul play. Some speculate this was proof of an insurance fraud conspiracy between both Mary Celeste and De Gratia. They had left the same port just weeks earlier, and both captains were at least confirmed to be acquaintances. If it was a plan to defraud insurers, it didn't go well, because the ship didn't take enough to sink, and the Celeste crew never reappeared. You can imagine the confidence of Captain Briggs and what he would have felt when he placed his own wife and child in the lifeboat, safe in the knowledge that the conspiracy was going to plan, only for the choppy waves to upturn their raft, drowning his family, all because of his greed. Was it guilt that kept the captain of the De Gratia from revealing the truth? Perhaps the con was his idea, and with his partner out of the way, he stood to gain everything. But this insurance plan has not been widely accepted. No strong evidence of a relationship between the two captains was produced, and it's so far-fetched that it seems implausible. Yet, any explanation seems as likely in absence of the true answer. Whether mutiny, sea creature, a criminal mind, or some other evil, it remains unsolved. Until now. In the mid-2000s, a documentarian using modern maritime technology arrived at a less dramatic, but equally chilling conclusion. Their solution was this. The Mary Celeste was carrying coal, and had been extensively refitted before its journey, so it was possible coal dust and construction debris had clogged the pumps. This would explain the disassembled equipment discovered on board. With the pump inoperative, Captain Briggs would not have known how much seawater was in the hull, and with the cargo hold fully packed, it would not be possible to measure visually. Add to this, the ship had just gone through rough weather, but with land spotted, all recorded in the logs, it seems Captain Briggs decided to be better safe than sorry. This was his fateful error. He must have ordered everyone to immediately abandon ship, cutting the ropes to get as far away as possible and make a brave dash for nearby land. But the boat was fine. It wasn't going to sink, even though the waters were rough. So this realization that a simple mistake had endangered everyone's lives must have shaken Briggs to his core. No doubt his family and crew, now unable to get back on board, realized too what mistake had been made just from looking at his face change. And so a moment of chilling silence must have fallen on everyone in the boat, knowing that they had just doomed themselves. Everyone but the baby, of course, who would not have been able to comprehend that it would be mere moments before a wave crashed down onto their lifeboat to claim their soul. No doubt you have your own theory of what happened to the fateful crew, so please share your insight in the comments below. If you'd like us to investigate more chilling ghost ship stories, then please leave a like, and don't forget to share this video with someone scared of water. Our next video will be out soon, so subscribe to be the first to catch it. Thank you for watching. Sweet dreams.